today. Is Nate Diaz making a comeback to mixed martial arts? And will it be with the UFC? Or will it be with the newest rival to the company? Also, what about Kevin Vallejos going out there and leaving Josh Emmett, leaving us wanting Josh Emmett to put the gloves down in the ring, but he didn't. He didn't. He did not. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt, and we're here to talk about the latest and greatest in mixed martial arts news. Primarily, couple of things we're gonna get off into today. Starting off with Nate Diaz is making his return to mixed martial arts, but not with the UFC, not with Uncle Dana, nothing of that sort. The 209 Gangster's making his return to MVP, Most Valuable Promotions card, big huge card that they trying to build it with the stars from yesteryear. Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano, Francis Ngannou versus Felipe Lins, and Nate Diaz will step back in the octagon, back into the cage at 170 pounds against Platinum Mike Perry from BKFC fame and of yesteryear of the UFC. I don't think he's fought in the UFC since 2021, but nevertheless, these two men both will make their return to mixed martial arts because Mike Perry's been fighting in bare knuckle boxing over in BKFC, and they're going to make their return this May on the Ronda Rousey Gina Carano card. So, initial thoughts on this. I never really thought that Nate Diaz is such a polarizing figure, but he moves in a way in which you never really know what his next move is going to be. You don't know if he's going to go the bare knuckle boxing route. You don't know if he's going to have a boxing match. You don't know if he's going to do an MMA match. You don't really know what he's going to do. But one thing I can say, considering he had been away from the PFL this entire time and hadn't gone that route, I just pretty much figured that if he was going to go back to MMA, he was going to go back to the UFC to do that. You know, so many already made fights that he could have done. They could have finally pulled the trigger on him versus Conor McGregor. Go ahead and get that trilogy out the way. They could have went ahead and pulled the trigger on him fighting Dustin Poirier. Because I feel like Dustin still flirts with making a comeback, and I feel like at 170 pounds he might have took that fight in the UFC. The UFC probably should have booked that and threw that on the White House card, or threw him in there with Conor on the White House card. But that goes along with what Ronda Rousey's been saying over the course of like the last 2 weeks about the UFC and the Paramount deal, that the UFC is not worried about making those fights. Hey, bro, we ain't really got to pay top dollar and make those kind of fights for real. We ain't really got to pay top dollar and go out there and do this, man. 7 points, when you're looking at us being the UFC, is 7.7 billion right in your face, right in your melon, letting you know. You know what I'm saying? The UFC moving way differently in 2026 than any previous year. Way different. And that's clearly, to me, when you got those two fights already made with Nate and Conor and Nate and Dustin, and I know Dustin would have came back for that White House card check if it was the old UFC, that tells me they're not willing to foot the bill for these fighters, these huge fighters anymore. They're not willing to foot the bill for that. And that's very interesting, bro. Very, very interesting what's going on right now. So, you know, and I believe the opening betting lines on that fight actually have Nate Diaz as, they have him as the underdog. And honestly, if it stays that if it stays that way, your boy Matt is definitely gonna place some bets on that. Cause given how many years Mike Perry hasn't fought in MMA, given Nate Diaz being good at grappling, being he's good in the clinch, Mike Perry hasn't really been able to clinch over in bare knuckle boxing. Man, you might be able to make a little bit of money on that fight if you get in at the right time. You know what I'm saying? You want to get in early. The closer that we get to it and all the hype that surrounds Nate Diaz, it usually does in a fight week, he's probably going to end up being the favorite. But for right now, he's an underdog, which is very, very interesting. I don't know how many sports books are showing that, but a few are. Nevertheless, man, Nate Diaz making a comeback, 170 pounds. You know, another thing is, man, Nate just don't even care, bro. Like, these last few times we've seen him in any sort of physical contest, homie doesn't even really look like he's full-blown in shape or remotely closely in shape. You know what I'm saying? So that might be something to look at, because in a lot of, even though he's coming in, Mike Perry's coming in 185, 190 sometimes, maybe more in his boxing events. You know, Mike Perry come in shape. Now, he'd have to deplete himself quite a bit probably to go back down to 170 pounds because he hasn't been there in years. But still, very, very interesting. Let's move on. Let's move on. As your boy checks his notes, let's go ahead and we're going to talk about the UFC. We're going to talk about over the weekend, card went down in the world-famous Apex Arena, in which in the main event we saw Kevin Vallejos go out there and defeat, what's homie's name? It's a fight that we ain't even really need for real. Josh Emmett. Bro, look, nothing shocking about it. The only thing that was slightly shocking is I didn't know that Kevin Vallejos was actually that advanced. Right? Like, I knew homie could fight, I knew he could scrap, but I didn't know that he could cerebrally, if that is a word, I'm not sure. Tremendous word for a dude from Louisville, Kentucky, but I'm not sure if that's correct. I didn't know that he could go in there and take Josh Emmett apart simply by setting traps and the man falling face first right into the traps. To eventually, he was caught, he was wobbled, he was back up against the cage, he was getting caught more, and then it was a wrap. So, at this point, I mean, where you go with Kevin Vallejos, I mean, he was ranked number 14 coming into the fight. Josh Emmett's number 11. You never know about these new UFC rankings. They might just figure out a way to throw him on in there in the top 10 at number 10. But you would think he'd be at number 11. So you now have to give him a top 10 fight regardless his next fight, I would assume, unless he does something on short notice. Very interesting at featherweight, man. It's good to get some new blood in there, because I have a feeling that after his next fight, whoever that, I'm assuming it's going to be against the winner of the fight this weekend with Lerone Murphy. I'm assuming the winner of that is going to fight Volkanovski. So you really got to think, like, this is great for featherweight, because getting some new blood in there, that people are actually excited about, man, that's what it's all about, man. That's what we really need right now in the UFC, especially at featherweight, because after this next title defense, or if he loses the belt, Volkanovski's next fight, I think homie goes up to 155 pounds and tries to take some sort of a big money fight. You know, probably for no belt at all, but still some sort of a big money fight, and then he rides off into the sunset. So we'll see how that goes. But in the main event, Kevin Vallejos goes out there and defeats Josh Emmett. You know, for as long as it lasted, it was cool to see Kevin just go out there and dismantle the man. Co-main event, Amanda Lemos goes out there, takes a L that we all knew she was going to take against Jillian Robertson. I'm mad I didn't really get to cover this card last week before it actually happened, because a lot of the people I thought was going to win on this ended up winning. Go figure. Most of the fights I cover on here, I generally get them wrong. But this is one that I just knew I had nailed, bro. But I got busy last week with some other stuff, didn't get to make a video. Nevertheless, man, Jillian Robertson goes out there. I really wish she would have really went harder for the finish. You know, when she was on top of Lemos on the ground, I really wish she would have really drove it home and tried to get that finish, because that's what she really needed to firmly plant herself at the top about the challenge for the title. I mean, no doubt it seems like what the UFC is waiting on or angling towards is Mackenzie Dern attempting to defend her championship against Zhang Wei Li. But Jillian Robertson could have been right in there with a good, solid, you know, good violent finish, violent submission. You know what I'm saying? There is such a thing with a really good grappler like her. Man, she could have really punched that ticket. She wouldn't have been next, but she definitely would have been next for the winner of that fight. By the time they finally signed that fight, because they haven't signed it yet, you know, Mackenzie Dern's still globetrotting around the country. I'm sorry, around the world. So at this moment, you know, she's still on that I just won the title, you know, celebration tour. Man, Jillian Robertson's probably going to have to take another fight. You know, she's just probably going to have to do another one. And she probably could have set it out and not even had to worry about it with a good, solid finish. But nevertheless, man, she's probably going to end up fighting again. Split decision for my boy. Andre Fili takes an L to my boy Jose Miguel Delgado. Goes out there, and I'm going to be real, because Andre Fili's also my boy. Jose Delgado is my boy. Bro, Andre Fili really put it on Jose in that first round and parts of the second round, and even had a few moments in the third round. Like, I feel like that fight could have also have gone to him as well. And I haven't checked the temperature of that online to see what people are saying about that. But I'm watching it, and I'm not going to say it was dead even. I was cool with Jose getting the win, but I feel like that could have went either way. Shout out to Andre Fili, who went out there and really look solid, man, because he's generally, I mean, he kept his same his same deal for all of his fights, where he wins a fight, loses a fight, he wins a fight, loses a fight. This was his fight to lose, but he actually looked solid. And if the judges would have went for him, because I mean it was a split decision, it wouldn't have shocked me at all. He fought a really good fight, so shout out to Andre Fili. But Jose Miguel Delgado goes out there and gets the win. Next, how about we got Fight of the Night? Also, Performance of the Night went to Kevin Vallejos. I forgot to say that. Fight of the Night, we had Marwan Rahiki goes out there and has a war with Harry Hardwick. This was like an old school kind of UFC fight. Two guys going out there and just throwing hands, throwing feet, a little bit of grappling, but let's get right down to it. Let's throw these hands. Guys getting rocked. I mean, Marwan never, I mean, he was rocked, but he was never really like, you thought it was really getting ready to be over for him. But he was taking some hammers from Harry. You know what I'm saying? That's the new rhyme. That's the new rap. Hammers from Harry. Bro, because he was swinging them and he was taking them. But Harry, man, the chin on this dude, because his chin is a trip, bro. Because he gets wobbled and he's completely, he'll drop. And he looks like he might be out or over. But as he keeps getting hit, he recovers. And then he gets back. And the next thing you know, he's firing off rounds as well. Shout out to him. You know, as I'm watching that fight, I started the fight against him. And as the fight went on, I was kind of wanting him to get that first win in the UFC. But man, shout out to both of these dudes. They go out there, have an outstanding fight. Fight of the night. And, you know, Marwan gets the KO victory. It was outstanding, bro. Outstanding. Great fight. How about Ion Cutelaba going out there and defeating Omar Sy? Bro, this is very interesting because Omar Sy, he's got all the talent and all the ability in the world. But it seems sometimes he gets out there and he stalls in his fights, especially early on. And he seems like he goes out there and he stalls, and then there's a moment in which he switches on and uses all of his abilities and gets the win a lot of the time, or at least does enough to win by decision. But Kutulabe is just, he's no joke, bro. This man is a hard-nosed vet, and he's no joke. And early on in his career, we didn't know what we were getting because he's a madman. He's coming to the weigh-ins. He's painted like the Incredible Hulk. He's wilding out, and he's like, early on, he would do wild tactics in the octagon. There was a fight where he acted like he was completely wobbled. I believe it was during his wars that he used to have with Ankalaev. But he would go in there and he got hit for sure, but he acted like he was more wobbled than what he was to try to lure him in, and then he just cocked off and tried to clock him, and it did not work. But Ankalaev hung with him because he ain't no joke. But man, this dude used to do some wild stuff in his fights. Act like he was done, then he wasn't. One time it backfired against him. It backfired on him. A referee, I don't know, it might have been the same Ankalaev fight. I'm not sure. There was a fight where it backfired on him, and he played like he was messed up. The referee thought he was and stopped the fight. This dude is wild, bro. He's normally known for his weigh-ins when he does the ceremonial weigh-ins where he's right in front of the guy. He'll yell at the guy, scare him. Man, you need to Google when he did that to Khalil Roundtree and look at the fear on Khalil Roundtree. He's just thrown off when dude does it. And he's like, okay, all right, that's what we doing. Bro, Kutalabe is that dude. I likes him. He goes out there and gets a submission in round 1. Just got him down to the ground, grappled him, and got the submission. Outstanding. How about Charles Johnson goes out there, loses a split decision to Bruno Silva. This is a fight in which I wasn't necessarily mad that it went to Bruno Silva, but I definitely think it could have went Charles Johnson's way. Shout out to Charles Johnson, the man with one of the most unique haircut on this card for sure. But, outstanding, man. Just very, 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 very interesting. Charles Johnson still continues to... I hate to see him getting these 2 losses in a row because I really think this guy's so talented, but, just weird things happen to him in his fights at times. A lot of fouls in this fight. He got low blowed a lot, so that wasn't good either. But I felt like the fight probably could have went his way. Chris Curtis goes out there and gets controlled on the ground by Orobai like we thought he would. Even at 170 pounds, Chris Curtis, I don't know, man. I feel like mentally he takes himself out of these fights. I mean, like either way, he was going to get wrestle-effed and grappled on the ground regardless. But I feel like a lot of these fights, he just goes in and he seems strong when he's going in there, but then the weak mentality takes over and he's not really there. Vitor Petrino had a great fight with Steven Asplund. That was an outstanding fight because if I would have done a video for this card ahead of time, I was going to pick Steven to win that fight. And I think at the end of the day, Vitor's a little bit of his veteran savvy showed there how he was able to roll with a lot of the shots. He got wobbled a ton. So he was definitely getting wobbled more in this fight for sure. But I feel like his savvy of just being able to roll with a lot of those shots, continue to fire back, are really what kind of got him that victory because he stayed very active and he was a little bit more accurate in my opinion than Steven. But Steven is that dude, man. I like this dude. And so hopefully, he rebounds. I think a lot of the things that Dominic Cruz was saying about his style, he really needs to go back and watch that because if he just shored up that striking and did a lot more jabs straight down the middle, I think he'd be out. He's going to be outstanding at heavyweight. So we'll see where he goes from there. Elijah Smith looked outstanding against Song Yoon Yu. That was an outstanding showing by him while it lasted. There was a lot of good wrestling in that first round as well by both men. He wins by submission in the second round. If I'm pronouncing his first name right, Manuel Souza had an outstanding fight with Oki. This was a great back and forth fight. Finally, Oki didn't actually just gas out early on, even though he did slow down towards the end. And Souza lays him out more toward the end of the third round. Great knockout, outstanding. We had an unk battle between Brad Tavares and Eric Anders. Your boy, Eric Anders, who actually wins this fight by unanimous decision, and he retires after. Shout out to him. It was very, very big moment for him because he got to fight there with his son there in the building, who might even been in his corner, but at least he got an octagon. I don't think he was in his corner, but he might have been. I don't know. He had on the UFC clothes, so who knows. But great. Bia Mosquito goes out there and defeats Rendon. Man, what you won't say? What you won't say about that fight? One round was all it took. It was a lot of ground and pound early on by Bia. Dominated that the entire time. And then it was just like, after ground and pounding on her for a while, she's like, man, well, let me just flip her over, take her back, and choke her out. And that's what she did. We all enjoyed that round. And UFC might have something in her, and they need some sort of hype there at bantamweight. If I was them, man, I would keep cruising along with Jocelyn Edwards, see what you can make out of that. You know, man, I would keep cruising along with old girl. It just felt like a week or two ago, Perez. But Bia Mosquito is right there, you know what I'm saying? Because in that division, we're not even worried about trying to promote the absolute best skill-wise in that division. What you're looking for more in that division is who are the eyes noticing, who's getting noticed, who's getting the social media traction, because we need to get something going in that division, especially if after her fight with Amanda Nunes, who knows, Kayla Harrison might retire. So, and I don't suspect Amanda Nunes is going to come back, and if she comes back, wins the belt, I doubt she's going to do many fights, if not only one after. Probably just retire right then and there again. So we'll see, but Bia Mosquito goes out there and gets a win. We see how that goes, man. So, you know, those are a few of the fights. Oh, can I forget about Hector Souza and his fight? He goes out there, has an outstanding back and forth fight with Luan Lacerda. Lacerda, man, he looked solid in that fight. Both men banged on the feet. It was an outstanding fight. You know, they were throwing all types of punches, looping hooks, straight ahead, great jabs, outstanding body kicks, teep kicks. This was a great fight. Good calf kicks, leg kicks, outstanding just back and forth war on the feet. And then when they did go to the ground, it wasn't really that boring at all. A lot of good grappling in this. So it was an outstanding fight. Only other fight I was going to touch on there, but nevertheless, guys, please let me know what you think about the card over the weekend. Let me know what you think about the return of Nate Diaz, but this time he's going to be under Most Valuable Promotions on Netflix. Clearly that card is going to dwarf everything MMA related all year because there's just too many fan favorite names on there. So, you know, that's definitely going to eclipse the White House card, although White House card's going to have way more skilled fighters on it. The best of the best is going to be on there, sorta, Zahabi. But nevertheless, man, Netflix they got one with that card. That's definitely going to be viewed by everyone. You might as well say it's for free because it's on Netflix and everybody got it. So please like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.